Ronan O'Gara, good morning to you.
Morning, hi Shane.
How are you doing?
Very good, how are you?
Good. Where are you at this point of your week? You've Gloucester obviously at the Stade Marcel de Flandre tomorrow evening. Heineken Cup round of 16. Where are you at in terms of planning now? Is it, the turnaround from last weekend, everything done and dusted, signed and sealed and we're ready to go? Or, where are you at?
Never like that, never really like that. So yesterday will be kind of the big hit out of the week where you try and go at high intensity for a 20-minute period or 25-minute period, and then review that, I suppose, this morning as a coach, and then present those findings to the players all around. We'll train as close as possible to kick-off time tonight for a final little jog through, captain's run we call it, so you do that 24 hours before kick-off in potentially as similar conditions you can create for your team. So hopefully tomorrow you transfer what you've been working on throughout the week. A lot of energy during the week. A big result last weekend in the top 14 give boys confidence, but it's always a fine line between getting your prep done and I wouldn't say respecting the opposition, but we were probably had that fear factor against Bordeaux, so we were on edge. And it's a big derby game, 42,000 people, fantastic soccer stadium. Ireland, I think, play Romania there, first game of Rugby World Cup. Surface needs to be improved a little bit. It's a soccer surface where couldn't take the scrums. But a beautiful stadium, great surface, fast game. So from that point of view, you're not boxed off, and I wish I could go drink coffee for the rest of the day.
Well, you've got good coffee there, Rog.
Connoisseur,
at the very least.
Yeah, it is. It's a great topic, though, as you say. I think, especially in coaching, I think, and if you ask any of the coaches, it's their number one. It will be high on the priority list of what gets them through a week, a day, whatever it is. It's 8:55. I've already had 2 flat whites. I've had nothing to eat, but by the time 3 o'clock comes, it'll be hitting 8 to 10.
Would you find, Ronan, so that when you have all the prep done, and not clearly the coffee helps in doing that, but you can almost relax at that point? Like, would you sleep better the night before a match now, or when you were a player?
It's very, very different. I think. I don't think when you're a player you understand the levels of tiredness that a coach can feel. It's very, very different. Sleep is a huge factor as a player and very important. You get your rest right, you get your recovery right. As a coach, it's over, you're finished. You know that, I'm not playing here, so mentally you have to be very sharp, obviously, but there are days there literally when by the time you kind of put your head in the pillow, you're gone. While other times it takes a while to get to sleep because the mind is very active. But there's been some days, especially Sunday, Mondays, you're shattered. You just need to go to bed and can't wait for the next day. And hopefully you're feeling better than you did when you went to bed.
Just on the game this weekend, so and I was just interested in your point about the fear factor against Bordeaux. So, like, for people who aren't familiar with it, Gloucester squeezed in as the final team in Pool A with a final round win over. Was it Bordeaux at that time? The final round win.
Yeah.
It was Bordeaux, yeah. And in the Premiership, it doesn't make pretty reading there. They've a big job of work to do to try and steer clear the relegation places there as well. I was reading some of the quotes with Jonathan Dante during the week. Just on your point there about the fear factor, it seems like you've put a big focus on ensuring that creep of, well, we should win this, doesn't become a factor on the day for the players.
Yeah, because we've already seen it 3 times. So, Adrian, you don't need any more proofs than that. We got smashed by Pau at home. We got beaten by Bordeaux at home. We got beaten by Lyon at home. So we're in an interesting study, I would think, in the fact of where are they coming from. And, there's obviously no talk in those weeks that opposition will get what they want in the Flandre, yet they did. And we're in that territory now where one game beating us can save a team's season. So that's very attractive from our point of view, because we know we've got a big target on our heads, but that changes when you're European champions. So We got to accept that, we got to embrace that, we got to love that, and we're ready for that. What's been good in the last few weeks is the fact that we've assumed that status and we're ready to fight on two fronts. And you got to remember that this started last August, so from August to March there's been a lot of hard yards. Now we need to enjoy this territory, enjoy this opportunity, and show what we're capable of playing.
I presume that in terms of that complacency bit, I presume that like the ideal scenario for you is that some of your senior players stand up in the room and go, listen, we need to be on our toes this week. You look at the quality of players that are there: Ludlow, Morgan, Harris, 12 trees, Reece Samet, Johnny May. There's like a quality there. You're looking for some of your players, I presume, to stand up and drive that culture. Is that how it manifests itself? Or?
Yeah, well, yes and no. You know, you've got a poor culture if you're looking for your players to get up and speak about complacency. That doesn't exist. You know, I think that's what separates, I suppose, the internally motivated players, the self-driven players, to other players that need motivation or inspiration from a coach. And that's not a weakness on their behalf, but it's just we go again every week, and that's where good players become great players. Their capacity to start again at zero and prepare very well and get their performance. But at the same time, they're not robots, and they have emotions, and they have family, and they've external issues sometimes, and that's why they're never always on. But you're hoping that, 15, 16, you're 23 are on, and that's good enough to carry you over the line from week to week, because the challenge every week is very different, the opposition is very different. But that stuff about culture and behaviour isn't fixed by talking, it's fixed by acts and consistent behaviours, and that's where we're getting better at, and why it's becoming very enjoyable to be part of this, I suppose, setup.
What are they, can I ask you, Ronan?
The behaviours?
Yeah.
Well, I think we measure ourselves on our values. Our values are established by not the club, but by the players. The club would have their own values, the players would have, and the team would have their values, and we measure ourselves with them. And I think it didn't really come down to rugby against Bordeaux. It came down to measuring up against those values that, I'm not going to obviously give you them what we measure ourselves with, but it's very understandable for people to understand what I am talking about. So we just have a look to see, do our behaviours measure up to our acts on the pitch? And they did last weekend, but they didn't in Pau at home, they didn't in Lyon at home, they didn't at Bordeaux at home. So you could add Gloucester to that list, and it wouldn't be a surprise to me if they are added to that list, if we don't get our preparation or our transfer on the pitch right. It's very, very easy, but when you're looking at that from a coach's point of view, you have to be on alert, but also know that if we do this and this correct, we have a great chance of performing well.
That's fascinating when you talk about the psychology, and you forget that they're professional sports people, but they're human beings with emotions as well. And that word complacency, as you say, like when you come off the back of a 30-point win away from home, people looking from the outside in are like, well, there has to be complacency there now, because such a big win. But
psychological battle, I love that understanding of what goes on in the mind. I just think that all the players have brilliant physical attributes. Sorry, not brilliant, but to a certain level. But then the great unknown is the mental battle, and that's what separates all the teams. The capacity to not break first, sometimes to not even seek something else. It's to not break first, and what does not break mentally first would be, I think, explained very differently by a lot of different coaches. But it's just the body will go where the mind is telling it, but if the mind doesn't want to go, you're going to break, or someone's going to break, and that's the weakness, where you get a soft shoulder, you come up with an ill-disciplined play, you force the referee's hand in terms of holding on. It's either 3 points or kick to the corner, pressure for the opposition. There's all these mini moments throughout the game, but a lot of people focus on the end of the game, while let's start quick, let's start fast, let's set our tempo. And that's why with 23 people included in the game, they all see it very, very differently. And when you speak different languages and you come from all different corners of the world, it becomes very, very exciting, because there isn't enough time for discussions, and there isn't enough time to hear everyone, but you want those discussions to happen, because that means that the players are able to be themselves. If players are able to be themselves, they can express themselves. If you're trying to play in a setup that he's not at ease with, you're not going to get the best out of him.
And those external factors that you mentioned, that's something that isn't considered by media or by fans. A lot of the time, like, you forget that, as you say, these players sometimes are, maybe they're having a week of bad sleep, there's stuff going on at home, they're stressed about something else that we don't know about. So, like, a lot of it, I guess, for you is man management. It's being aware of those things. And a lot of people talk about Alex Ferguson and how he was a manager as opposed to a coach, left the coaching to other people. But that dealing with human beings is such a crucial part of the job, and knowing what's going on behind the scenes.
Yeah, exactly. And there is always, because there's 70 people between players and staff, there's always external factors, and some of them are quite serious. But what the experienced players or senior players are people, they're able to park. Some people aren't able to park the external issues, other people are. Some people find that it just eats away at them and it gets them and swallows them up. And once you've had those discussions with them, you can completely understand them. There's a reason. It's where the player may not have that confidence to approach you or a member of staff to tell them exactly what the story is. And it's probably very apt in terms of how it's applied to the general public in terms of mental health. A problem shared is a problem halved. We need to open up, we need to discuss, we need to chat, we need to tell me and we can help. And it applies to me as well when I'm having down periods. You gotta share these, and you gotta let people know, because if you bottle it up, you're either going to explode or do something that will cause hurt to you or your players, and that's what we want to completely avoid in high pressure environments.
You mentioned Ultan Dillane in your piece in the Examiner this morning, and you're confirming that he's going to start tomorrow. Will you talk to us a little bit about the journey that he's been on? He's cooking by all accounts.
Yeah, he's found his mojo, has found his stride. He had a big game last weekend, and it's a perfect example of what's involved in a player leaving an environment he was thriving in, that went to probably a stale end in Connacht, and then transferred over to France, doesn't know anyone, can speak the language very well, new setup, period of introduction, and then that takes time. And I think there was probably periods at the start where I was going, Ulti in a Connacht jersey and an Irish jersey isn't measuring up to what I saw in the past. But now, bingo, the last month, yes, this is what I like. This is what really appeals to me. And there was never any stress between the me or Ultan. There was only small discussions, but it's a good learning for me too, and the fact that that's what happens when, I suppose, a guy transfers from a different European country to another country. It takes time to find his straps, to get in with the boys and find what works for him. Now, the final stage is just getting those performances, and that's the level where we're at. And then I'm pretty confident with, I suppose, the fitness he has, he can go to another level as well.
I was watching a replay of the Raymond Rule try from last weekend, where you run the ball from behind your own goal line and length of the pitch and over it goes. What?
You're after a few whiskies, are you? What game were you?
Was it? Oh, maybe it was from a couple of weeks prior. It was actually a preview of the game that included a clip from a few weeks prior. In fact, now that you mention it, you're absolutely right. Of course, you might know these things. Was it against Racing?
Adrian.
Was it against Racing?
Me, okay?
I need to get more coffees in. Sorry, what abuse are you giving me there? I'll shut up.
Go on, sorry.
I need to have a word with my line manager about
That's even last season, I think.
Was it even last season?
This season?
Well, it's ruined my question in that case, but I'll ask you anyway. There was so much chat last year about nothing worse than a belligerent interviewer, as we know. KBA is what I wanted to ask you about, and the Keep Ball Alive philosophy. Is that still? It got so much airtime a couple of years ago, and it seemed to sort of disappear off the radar at some point. Is that still a thing that you speak about, or an approach that you have?
Of course, yeah, but that's one of many different philosophies in the moment. And the fact that all that means is that's Crusaders speak. Is just keep ball alive, and LQB is lightning quick ball. That's becoming a little bit more in mode at the minute as well. So these are all buzzwords that happen, but there are many teams or players doing KBA, but unfortunately they're keeping the ball alive by offloading to the opposition, which completely is the opposite of what you want, So obviously if you fall to the ground and you create a ruck, everyone's talking about the speed of the ruck ball, but to avoid rucks, you don't play off the ground, you keep the ball alive, so there are no rucks, so it's obviously faster than a ruck, so that beats the speed of, I suppose, so many of the data analysts out there who are engrossed in this ruck speed. But what the French are very good at is that they don't at times, and it was always the key point of Axel when we played French teams, is just make them ruck. They don't like rucking, so that's where it's fascinating for us. We're trying to combine the DNA of the French teams where they play out of the tackle to something Joe Smith was brilliant at, coaching the ruck, and Donnacha Ryan obviously played under him, so he has a lot of good nuggets on that. So we're trying to marry the two of them at club level and see what it brings us.
Jules Favre is your number 10. Ronan, I know he's another name you mentioned in your Examiner column this morning, but
no, he's our number.
Oh, sorry, but he kicked 17
12,
points.
13, 11,
of course, yeah.
14, 20.
We all need to do our prep a bit better.
Well, funny, we were talking about squad numbers this morning, the importance of squad numbers as well. Funny, ironically enough, on the show this morning. But kicked 17 points last weekend, and I think it's you mentioned his 100th start for La Rochelle this weekend coming. Do you find yourself levitating towards the likes of Jules Favre in the squad because he's a kicker, or it's like asking who's your favourite child? You don't say.
No, it wasn't that. It's just this is a guy who has worked extremely hard, and it's a great example, I think, for younger kids, and the fact too that this guy isn't a natural goal kicker, but he's practice, and then for me, it's reassuring that you can put a fella like Astoy on holidays and call on Jules Favre to goal kick, and he kicked whatever they were, reasonably easy kicks, but no kick is easy when it's your first time kicking, really, in front of 42,000 people. What gives me a lot of pleasure in the fact coaching this guy is to watching a guy progress in front of you and being open to learning and open to getting better, but having that great smile when he comes in every day and in good form and a pleasure to be around. That's why I like working with these guys. He works hard at his game and he's getting the return for it. He's 24, I think, and he's 100 games for Stade Rochelle, which is great.
Felix Jones obviously announced during the week, Ronan, that he's off to the England backroom staff at the end of the World Cup. A guy that you obviously shared a dressing room with for 3 or 4 years at Munster. I remember at that time, even before he had forced to retire injured, the chat around his leadership qualities at that stage, and he's got some bloody CV at a very young age now.
Yeah, it's not a surprise. Obviously, Felix is an insane competitor, loves it. Loves talking rugby, loves getting the best out of the people he works with. Everywhere he's gone, he creates great connections with the people he works with. So I think the connection would be Alan Walters, who was the strength and conditioning coach in Munster, who went on to obviously design the model for South Africa to win the World Cup. Then he goes to Leicester, so he'd have the in on Felix. So Alan said, I presume, get this guy. And now Felix is poached to work with England, which is a fantastic opportunity for him. I think his family is in Limerick maybe still, so it's obviously closer to home for him, but keeps him at the top end of the game.
Yeah, I'm sure hopefully we might see him back here at some point as well down the track.
Final one for me, Ronan. There was a lovely video that a lot of people will have seen this morning from that came out of the game last weekend. It was yourself and the ball boy during the match, caught on camera, kind of teaching
technique.
Yeah, a bit of tackling technique, and you kind of picked. He stood up, and you could see the look in the kid's eyes. He's absolutely buzzing that he's getting a one-on-one from yourself. That was a lovely moment. It's something that probably he'll remember forever.
Yeah, when you're there, you don't. Obviously, I've seen the image, and it's pretty close up of the discussion, which is the chat prior to that. He had beaten my son in the under-13s when Bordeaux beat La Rochelle, and so he was having a joke with me about that. And then he was obviously a big fan of Jalibert, who's a brilliant player for Bordeaux. And I just said the big challenge for Jalibert at test level was he's got to keep making his tackles. And I said, are you a good tackler? And he said, yeah, I'm a brilliant tackler. And I said, brilliant, come on, show me. So it was because he was a lovely little kid, great chat throughout the game with him. And you forget that because my boys do it in La Rochelle, and it doesn't cost anything just to say how's your evening going or whatever, but then the chat just happened naturally with him. We got chatting about all things, and big fan of Jalibert, as I said, and he is an exceptional player, a brilliant player. And I was just saying to him that you got to be Jalibert, you got to be like Jalibert, and you got to keep going. Jalibert's got to keep practicing those tackles, and same for you. And it was then he was talking about just that he didn't miss any tackles in his under-13 game against La Rochelle.
His technique was a bit high to begin with, and you had to say to him, listen, get low.
No, it was just because that's the thing too, you don't, if you get the hip bone, it's a knockout. Right. And one of our core players, Matthias Haddad, had a bad KO in the game because he put his head the wrong side of the tackle, Yeah. I think I was a little bit spooked by that, so it was just making sure that you get flesh between the knee and the arse, but the closer you go to the hip, there's guys with a few hard hip bones.
Yeah, Gary Ringrose, of course, from a few weeks ago as well. Enjoy the flat whites today. Good luck tomorrow. Catch up with you down the track.
Cheers, Ron.
Good to chat.
Thanks a lot. Ronan O'Gara on the line there.